Okay, so I am delighted to announce that I am introducing and welcoming my man, Mr. Martin Rooney, with his tricolour flag all the way from America onto the show today. Martin, welcome to the show and thanks for coming on, buddy.
Hey, my pleasure, Adrian. And hey, for everybody listening, I hope everybody is doing good and staying Irish strong. And hey, I have this flag because with the last name Rooney, I have no choice. I better have one of these in my house. So, Irish blood runs through my veins, and I couldn't be more excited to fire everybody up and share some wisdom today that hopefully is going to make everybody a little bit better.
Excellent. Now, if you haven't heard Martin speak before, Martin is one of the most electrifying, motivating characters I have ever. And I was so lucky to actually experience your communication in the flesh live on that 2-day course. And we were trying to establish off air how long ago it was, but like Martin is on the road so much. I think it was about 2013. It was about 7 years ago, but there's still so many principles that I experienced during that weekend that I still apply. And it really, I guess, underpins so much of my coaching philosophy now. But just for the listeners who may not be aware of your work, could you give a brief little bio on who you are, your coaching, and what you do now, Martin?
For sure. And hey, everything I'm about to say is true. And everything I'm about to say just means I'm old, right? So for everybody listening, there's a lot of things, but I'm going to try to cover it really quick. So I grew up in New Jersey, right outside of New York City, and my mother was a coach. My mother was a physical education teacher. My father was an Olympic caliber rower who had started his own business in computer software. So I had kind of this inspiration of a family of physical fitness, but also running a business that could make a difference. And that impacted me all the way up until today. I played many sports growing up, but in particular, track and field is an area, or athletics was an area that I really did well. So I went to university or college for that. And I was a track and field athlete there, but I fell in love again still with exercise. So I got my first degree in exercise science. And then I went to the Medical University of South Carolina, where I got my degree in physical therapy or physio, but also my master's degree in health as well, because I just always wanted to learn more. And in a weird twist of fate, I then made the U.S. bobsled team. And, which a lot of people say, how did that happen? And a lot of it was chance, but a lot of it was opportunity. And we're going to talk about that today, that there are opportunities that are always around, even in times of COVID, but many people just don't choose to take that opportunity when it's staring you in the face. But I did. I got to live at the Olympic Training Center, train with the highest level athletes and coaches in the world. And again, it told me fitness was what I really loved. But when my Olympic dream was over, what did I do? I did what the world told me to do. The world said, you have a degree in physio. You should be a physical therapist, man. That's what you should do. It's a good job. And I got a job, and I was working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I knew almost immediately it wasn't what I wanted to do. It was, hey, for any physios listening, I am not telling you it's not a good job. It's just not what I was most passionate about. I was passionate about therapy, but maybe on a more people that were a little more healthy or athletes. And it was just pulling at me. And all I would do in my spare time is learn more about it, or fitness, and learn more about coaching. But everybody told me, you can't do that. That'll be the worst thing. You just got to do this job. And man, I did that job for over 3.5 years before I finally broke away. A friend of mine and I, Bill Parisi, we started the Parisi Speed School. That was all sports performance for young kids in the 1990s when no one was doing it. And then my career was launched, and I started writing and I started speaking. I launched Training for Warriors after working with all the top UFC guys in the world, way before Conor McGregor was Conor McGregor. Last week I cornered one of my fighters. He has the most fights in UFC history, so I'm still doing that. but now we have hundreds of Training for Warriors facilities around the world. We've got a great one in Cork, Ireland too, the McCarthy brothers. Shout out to those guys. And man, now I spend my time coaching people around the world, and I've made this huge transition from student to athlete to coach to dad. And I'm hoping that we're going to cover some of that stuff today, because I think everybody hearing about my transition, and hopefully everybody heard the first lesson, because remember, I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to help you. The first lesson, and maybe this is the most important one anybody can hear, is don't do something you don't love. Don't spend your life on something you're not passionate about, because man, the world needs your greatness to come out. And many people, they either miss the opportunity or they don't do it, thinking either they should sacrifice or suffer. And I think that's the wrong way to look at things. So especially now, as we've been forced to see what is essential or not essential as a job, I would say the most essential job in the world is the one that you love doing more than anything else, because that's where you'll be your best. And man, you'll be giving the world what it needs. So that's a quick story. There's a lot more in there, but that was also a 25-year story summed up really, really quick.
Yeah, and there's so many rabbit holes we could jump down along that 25-year story. But let's stick to this concept of coaching, okay? Because you know, you are one of the first guys who really opened my eyes to the art of coaching. Because I remember when I first went on the Training for Warriors course, I was looking for the next activation exercise, or I was initially the next push-up variation. But very soon it became really evident to me that there was a big hole in my coaching game. And that big hole was the art of coaching. And you know, the art of motivating people and the art of connecting and empathy. And ever since then, it really lit a fire underneath my backside to focus on that area. And I'd like to think now that that's an area that I have given a tremendous amount of focus to, and I'm helping other people along those lines as well. So in terms of your evolution of a coach, okay, so what has that looked like, Martin?
Yeah, well, hey, first thing, and this is important for everybody listening, is we're going to talk a lot about coaching, but that doesn't mean that the science and those techniques and the exercises aren't important. So I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea and think that, oh, Martin Rooney says, oh, you just got to be a good coach and connect, and you don't have to know the other stuff. No, I have 3 degrees. I spend my time reading and studying technique and exercise all the time. But what I found in my evolution was that's only one part of being a great coach, right? There are so many knowledgeable people. You can have 10 PhDs and help no one, or you could know a lot less and really change somebody's life. So as I really started to see, why was I able to get the results I was able to get? It wasn't one or the other. It was the combination of both, right? So here's an example that I use. One time I was learning how to use Twitter, and they said, hey, you have to engage your audience. You have to engage your audience, right? So I said, okay, here's an engaging question. If you went to a restaurant, would you have steak or would you have lobster? And some guys are saying steak, steak, steak. And then some guys are saying lobster, oh, lobster, lobster. And then one guy said, hey, man, you're Martin Rooney, man. Have both. Surf and turf, do both. And what I'm trying to explain is, guys, to be that great coach, you got to have both. I mean, if you don't know anything or have a passion for the sport or the technique, like if you knew nothing about hurling, Adrian, man, it's going to be hard to coach it no matter how inspiring you are, right? Like, so I'll say this, I would have to learn a whole lot more about hurling before I could really coach guys, even though I consider myself a pretty good coach. So you got to have both. And that's not a bad thing. That's an adventure to learn so much and about how they work together, right? So I just want to be clear, make sure we were clear with that. And now we'll talk about the evolution. And you know what? The evolution, in a weird way, at first I might say, oh, I'm not proud to say it. But then I would say, yeah, I am proud to say it, because the only way you grow sometimes is by making mistakes and learning from those errors. And then you become more, right? Like life, I've heard is you get the exam after, or you get what? Yeah, how does it work? You get the result, then you take, or you take the exam, you get the result, whatever it is, it's backwards, right? You gotta first suffer before you can learn the lesson. And that is what has happened with me for a long, long time. And it only made me excited to challenge myself more, not stay where I am, right? So I would say this, in the beginning, I wasn't a very good coach. And it's because I had an identity problem. And let's go over that. Like, so what does that mean? An identity problem. If you asked me in my late 20s, when I really became a coach, if you asked me what I was or what I identified as, do you know what I would say?
An athlete.
Yeah. Like I would say I was an athlete. When I was a physical therapist, I would say I was an athlete. I wouldn't have said I was a physical therapist. So if somebody said, deep down, Martin, who are you? I would say, man, I'm an athlete. I'm still training all the time. I'm fresh off the bobsled team. I was this collegiate athlete. Now I'm competing in martial arts and powerlifting. Like I'm an athlete. And because that was my identity, what do you think I was always chasing?
Athletic endeavors.
Yeah, I was chasing the push-up, learning more push-ups. But who was I learning them for? I was learning them for me. And then I was chasing more about nutrition. I was chasing more about sport and technique. But it was all self-centered so that I could get better. Now, I was still doing my job and I was still helping people when I was there. But I really don't think I was doing as good as I could because my identity was driving me towards something else. Now, if I fast forward there, then I became a father, right? So for everybody listening, another part of my history, I have 4 daughters, right? So, and usually the question comes next. People say, oh man, 4 daughters. Are you gonna try for the boy? And here's my answer, right? I already tried 4 times. That's it, man. I got nothing left, right? So, or as my wife would say, the shop is closed, right? So, and hey, here's a story too, the little Irish connection. My grandfather was born in Ireland. My grandfather is from Ireland and came to America. That's a common story in America. And my grandfather is Martin Rooney, and then his son was Martin Rooney. And my dad's son was Martin Rooney. And man, I blew it. So I had 4 daughters. So there won't be I did not keep the Rooney name going. So maybe one of my kids will use it and keep it or something. We'll see. But what I'm getting at there is there's a pride in family. There's a pride in heritage. There's something that you have to live up to, And when I became a father, something clicked, something changed where the world didn't revolve around me anymore, right? As an athlete, me and my competitions and things weren't the most important thing in the world anymore when I had children. And here's what's interesting though. For anybody listening, I'm taking you on a journey right now. See, and the beginning of the journey is selfish. That's a really important lesson. So the beginning of the journey is selfish. So when you're a baby, right? When you're a baby, you're the most selfish thing in the world. When you're hungry, you cry. When you need to get changed, you cry. Then when you become a child, you're selfish. You only want to have fun. You want to have gifts. Do you know what one of the first words is? I'm having a breakthrough right here, Adrian. Do you know what one of the first words is that a baby, when your child starts speaking, do you know what one of the first words that they say? They say, mine. Mine, mine. Like, so when they see a toy, mine, it's not even their toy, but mine, 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 mine. Everything is theirs. We go through this selfish phase, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's necessary. See, I went through a selfish phase when I was a student. When you're a student, you have to learn. You have to learn. You have to learn for you. Can't worry about anybody else. When you're an athlete, the most selfish athletes in the world, you know who they are? Olympians and professional athletes. They have to be selfish or they can't be great. They can't worry about everybody else. They'll never be focused enough to get it done. But when that changes, that's where even more magic happens. That's where you can add even more. So that's why I always say athletes are born in many ways. Great coaches, they're made. You got to learn it over a long time. And so when my identity changed to dad, and I started coaching my kids, man, my identity slowly shifted. And it took time. It wasn't immediate. I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm not an athlete anymore. Now I'm a coach. It took time. But now when somebody asks me what I am or who I am, I'm a coach. Just like I'm coaching people right now. Hey, I have a new book that I wrote. It's called Coach to Coach. That's how I believe everything is passed down through our history forever, from one coach to another, father to son, mother to daughter, teacher to student, coach to coach. And I'm on a mission now to make a world of better coaches. And you were right at the beginning of that. See, back in 2012, that was when I was starting to make that transition 8-10 years ago, when it was like, man, I see it now that the world needs better coaches. Let me teach them about that, not as much about the exercise. Anybody can learn those things, but not everybody's hearing about being a coach. And now, hey, another part of my history I didn't mention, I'm the high school track coach in town. And I was the middle school track coach before that. And do you know what I get for that? You know what I get? I don't get any money. I don't get paid, right? But I get the greatest feelings in the world when somebody calls you coach. And so if I were to, that was the fast version again of about 25 years of going from athlete to father to coach. And again, it's a transition. It's not immediate. It's a journey. But by me showing everybody a bit of that journey, maybe it's going to help everybody accelerate on it faster. So hopefully that was some good stuff there.
There's some good stuff in that, Martin. And so you coach your daughter as well, okay? So, and I know your daughter's quite a high level athlete, okay? How do you find differentiating the line between being a father and being a coach? And I know that's a hard question because, you know, it's difficult because you have your coach's hat, you have your father's hat, but then you have a really high level of awareness on both levels because you are a really top class level coach. Okay. So like we get a lot of coaches who will fall and they'll, you know what I mean? They'll get involved with what you would call little league over there, what we would call like under 10, under 12, but your daughter's at a high level now. You know what I mean? She's pushing at a high level. So how do you find that challenge, and how do you, you know, avoid, I guess, blurring the line between both?
Well, I guess I wish I could say, man, I know how to do it and I'm doing a great job and this is a piece of cake. And what I've noticed, Adrian, is the most important things in our lives, right? Like being a parent, being a husband or wife, being a great leader, like none of those come with a really good manual. So you have to learn by making a lot of mistakes. And I will say, my daughter and I, we've had a great relationship, and I've been really, really lucky because now, hey, she's 17 years old and we still train together every day where but I'll say this, when she was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we were best pals. You know, she was the kid like, man, I got to put her to sleep every night. And for every parent listening, as they know, when your daughter turns into a teenager, dad isn't so cool anymore, right? Like,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I didn't know what I was talking about anymore. I guess like I've you know, all of a sudden I don't know anything. But here's what I would say. I always made sure that the lines of communication were open. And I always tell her a couple of things that I'm going to give to everybody that's a parent right now. The first one is, whenever we would argue, right? Whenever she doesn't want to hear it, whenever she doesn't want to hear what I have to say, I just say this. I say, hey, and her name is Sophia. I say, hey, Sophia, who cares more about you than anybody else in the whole world? And then she stays quiet for a second. And then she says, you, Dad. And I said, and who wants you to succeed more than anybody else in the world? Anybody. And she's like, you, Dad. And then I say, And who would never do or say something that would hurt your chances of being the best you could be? You, Dad. And then I always finish with, and who knows more about this stuff than anybody else you know? And then that's the one that kills her. Yeah. And then she's like, oh, you, Dad. And then I said, okay, so look, you might want to be angry because I'm your dad or you don't like it or whatever else, but you got to believe me when I'm what we're doing or the process, right? And it has always worked by being honest. But if you notice, the most important thing I started with is who cares about you more than anybody, who loves you more than anybody. And for everybody listening, coaching is a relationship, and it's built on trust and it's built on caring, right? And you have to make sure you get that across more than exercises. You have to make sure you get that you want them to succeed more than anybody. That has to always be what they feel. And I think that was something not only did I always do with my own children, but with everybody I coached. And they just always knew that, like, man, this guy just wants us to do so great that, hey, well, here would be an example. Why was I the guy cornering at the UFC? And I've just cornered him twice in the last couple months after all these years, because he knows I care about him more than anybody and I want him to do great and I don't want anything from him. I just want him to succeed. And when somebody knows that and that trust is built, then they're going to let you be their coach. So that's first technique that I use. But remember, for everybody listening, it better be true. Don't tell somebody that and then the answer is somebody else, right? So make sure you've done the things that it takes to be real. But the other one, and this one I think is big because, like you said, hey, my daughter is also a track and field athlete. She was until all COVID happened and we didn't have a season last season. She was 10th in the U.S. for her age for heptathlon, which is 7 different events. She's a really good athlete and we've worked really, really hard, right? Like we've put in a lot of time. And I could see as the levels got higher and higher, there was more and more pressure. There was more and more pressure on her. She was creating pressure on herself. There was more pressure from school, from everyone, right? And this was very important, which I think made a breakthrough too, because I think I was sometimes adding that pressure. If anybody hasn't noticed, I'm kind of a type A excited guy, so I get a little fired up. And coaching girls, that'll be another whole thing we could do someday. Coaching girls is different than coaching boys. I coach them both. Boys, man, you could say, come on, guys, this is it. Do or die. Let's go. We got to get this. You say that to a girl, she's going to cry, unless that's how she likes to be coached. So I've still tried to have to learn how to coach, but this is important. What I say to the girls that I coach, I say, hey, no matter what happens here, your family, everybody, they're still going to love you, right? Like you're not letting anyone down. You're not losing anything. So go do your best, right? Go do your best. And I think that's important because I think girls, I would hear it sometimes that she was afraid to let anyone down or afraid to let everyone down. And, one time she had said something like, I don't want to not do good. And all the people that follow you on social media don't think I'm good. And I just remember saying, what are you talking about? Like, none of that matters. Hey, everybody thinks you're great. Go have fun, and it's easy to say, it's hard to do. But again, and I'm having a breakthrough here, do you see how the relationship still talks about coaching? Like, look, your coach is still going to like you and still, care about you if you win or lose. And they need to know this stuff because there's so much pressure today on young athletes for sure. So that is when I'm wearing both, I guess, the coach and the dad hat. But I will say this, as a coach, I let her know I'm tough. Like, I'm a tough coach. Like, not tough love, but like love tough. Like, I'm not nasty. I'm not mean. I never curse. I don't say bad things. But I'm going to make people work. And I'm going to be honest. And I'm going to make sure that people do what it takes to succeed because I know how to do that. And when I'm wearing that coach hat, sometimes it's hard for her because then it's almost like then sometimes they want you to be dad and take it easy on them or give them a break. And so we've communicated about that. Again, being honest, she knows. I tell her this is how it works. And we've had a great relationship. And I'll tell you what, she's talking to a lot of top colleges now. And hopefully soon we're going to know something about the future. And then the hardest thing in the world is going to happen is, for the first time, I'm going to be handing her off to another coach. And I don't know what I'm going to do with my life when that's over, because it's been 17 years, but I'm excited to see what's next for her. And then, hey, I'll be focusing on, well, and remember, I have other kids too. It's not just her, but I will be, I think it's going to be an exciting time. But for every coach, that's the greatest thing, when they go hand their kids off and get them in and let them see that they've done something great.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Not tough love. Okay. Love tough. So the love comes first, then the tough.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
And I think for every coach listening, guys, I think sometimes, and I talk about it a lot in the book, it's like this book, it's a story. So it's a story about a young coach that is really making a lot of mistakes, and and his life is kind of falling apart. And this old coach shows up and shows him what it's about. And really, I'm almost talking as the old coach today, right? So did I sometimes say the wrong things when I was younger? Was I too tough? Was I smashing people, thinking I'll make them work hard and then I'm tough and they're weak? I was all those things, but I got better than that. And my purpose is to try to make people accelerate through that faster, where again, I'm a tough coach, but I'm not there to be tough. I'm there to make people better. And you can't make people better if they don't know you care about them. And so the caring and the other stuff comes first, and that has never failed me. So yeah, it's you need them both. Just like I say this too, a coach needs to speak a certain language, right? So the coach's attitude, love tough, but the language, serious fun. So see, when I'm talking, man, and I'm coaching, I'm serious. And if you stay serious, then we're going to have fun, right? Then we'll make it fun. But I'm not there just to have fun, and we never do the serious work. So it's just the order that I think people get wrong. That I think a lot of times somebody gets called a coach and they think they're supposed to be tough and serious. And you know what? People don't like those people. And they don't believe that they care about them when they're getting their guts smashed in. And then they don't work, or worse, they quit a sport. And man, a coach should be measured by how many kids come back, not just in the next season. Watch this one. I'm having another breakthrough. A coach should be measured not just by who comes back the next season, but who comes back in 20 years and says, thank you for what you did in my life, coach. See that? Then you did your job. And you know what? They don't teach anybody that in school. Actually, there's not even coach in school. It's like you go become an athlete and then they make you a coach and they give you a hat that says coach on it. But there's more, right? There's more to learn about being a coach. And that's why this is the manifesto on it. And that's why I felt like I had to write it, because as I'm coaching young athletes now, and we're at a big meet, and I see these other coaches doing some things that's the wrong things, or even negligent, man, that's when I know it's not their fault. No one ever told them the right way. And that's why I'll scream it from the rooftops to make sure they learn it.
I love it. I love it. The number one, the number one attribute of a coach. Okay. And like, this is what you introduced to me all those years ago, because you started that whole weekend with your elevator speech. And to me, it was awareness, 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 know yourself, self-awareness, when to pull, when to push, when to speak, when to be a handbrake, and when to be an accelerator. Okay. So when you got to pull them back, when you got to push forward. So that whole area of awareness is key. And it actually underpins so much of my coaching philosophy and how I bring my coaching philosophy to life. Okay. Martin Rooney, give me a little bit on awareness.
Of the awareness? Well, I think we just talked about, right? We could take that word. Maybe that'll be the new thing you adopt, is identity, right? So it's who are you, right? Like when you ask, remember when we went through that exercise, people couldn't do it. It was like, hey, get up and in a minute, tell me about yourself. And people couldn't do it. It was, I don't know if they were terrified. I don't know if they had ever done the research. And true knowledge is self-knowledge. You got to know who you are before you can ever help somebody become who they want to become. And that's not bad news. That's great news. That means to be a coach, it's very interesting. That's why I say the world, everyone is a coach. If you're a mom or a dad, you're a coach. If you're a teacher, you're a coach. If you're a boss, you're a coach. If you're a teammate, you're a coach. Everyone is coaching someone else, right? But in order to do that, you got to know where you stand, right? You got to stand on firm ground to coach anybody else in the direction that they want to go. And that means to me, see, to be a doctor, to be a great surgeon, you don't have to, and hey, if somebody's a surgeon listening, but I would say the requisite would be the skill. Maybe you don't have to know who you are. You don't have to be a great person, right? Like, I don't care if my surgeon's a great person. If I have brain cancer and they're the best surgeon in the world, I want the best guy. I don't care. Whereas a coach, they've got to be a great person, and then they go out and they make great people. So it's this job like no other that requires the ability to know themselves, but also to connect with somebody else. And that's why it's such a great adventure. That's why I think I say being called coach is the most honorable thing someone can call you. So when a kid calls me coach, when they say, "Hey, Coach Rooney," it's like this amazing honor that they're saying, "Hey, coach, tell me what you think, and I'm going to listen, and I'm going to remember it the rest of my life." Like, there's no other job that does that, right? Your hairdresser can tell you something, you're not listening, maybe, or whatever else. Now, I'm not, but hey, and I don't want to say that some jobs aren't more important than others or anything, but at the same time, that hairdresser is a coach. They are a coach to someone. And if they identify as a coach, and then they say something and they've shown they've cared, they could affect that person for the rest of their lives. So I guess the purpose here is, here's the breakthrough. You ready? Everyone is essential because everyone is a coach, but you have to identify with it. So if you just identify that, I'm just a mom, or whatever else, then maybe you're not going to coach as much. But if you identify and you're aware that, wow, I am a coach and who I am is important and what I say could make a difference, and that person knows that through the trust and the caring and the love tough and the serious fun, man, that's what the world, I really believe, needs more than ever. Like right now, especially in the US, the world needs leaders, the world needs coaches, and we're not educating people how to do it. So maybe this will be a little step in that direction.
Yeah, 100%. And even in terms of psychology, everyone is a psychologist. Everyone has the ability to lift you up or push you down. You don't have to be someone sitting behind the desk. The local shopkeeper is a psychologist. The bus driver is a psychologist. People have that ability to act like, set the temperature in your life, essentially.
Yeah.
And
But they have to identify with it. See, if they don't think that, so like you said, if the bus driver just thinks he's the bus driver, then he won't say anything uplifting. He won't say anything that he doesn't feel important. So again, everybody, this is an important word. You ready for an important word I'm giving everyone right now? The word is permission. Most people don't give themselves permission. They don't give themselves permission to be a coach, be a psychologist, to be great, and to help somebody else out, or to even help themselves. So no one has taken away your permission. This world that we live in today, it's given us permission to be anything we want to be, go wherever we want to go, except right now you might have to wear a mask. But the whole thing is right now, again, like that word, like, so the person listening right now, I'm talking to you. Who took your permission away? Did you take it? Right? No, I'm giving you the permission back, and you have to give it to yourself that you are helpful and you can change somebody else's life. And as soon as you understand that, then the identity changes, and then your actions change too. And and man, and you know what? I wish I would have given it to myself sooner. I didn't either. It took a lot of mistakes and errors to learn it. I'm just hoping again that maybe it'll go faster when you hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just in terms of that, because just something popped into my head there as you were talking, and that was timing. Okay. Like, you have a really unique ability to speak and then to pause and allow the next flow of conversation to come. But a lot of coaches on the other end of the spectrum are naturally extrovert, okay? And sometimes they can overdo the communication, or the communication goes on too long, or they just lose the run of themselves because they just don't check themselves, okay? And it just kind of popped into my head there, okay? So that whole concept around, again, knowing when to push, knowing when to pull, and it's all connected back to awareness, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, how I always learned it, and it's what we're doing right now. See, look, it's like we're at Wimbledon right now. You just served something over, and now I'm going to serve it back. And then when I serve it back, I'm going to wait, and I'm going to see what we think. Now, remember, on a podcast, it's different sometimes than just a straight conversation where I'm trying to give you everything I have. So maybe I am going over what I should. But when you're coaching, and you know what's funny? My daughter said this the other day. She picked out something that I say a lot, and it's 3 words. Do you know what I say to her a lot? I say, do you understand? Not condescending, but I'll show something or I'll say something because I try to say it. I try to demonstrate it. I try to teach it. There's a lot of science in coaching too. Coaching isn't just an art. There's science there too. And then I'll say, do you understand? And she said the other day, she's like, Dad, do you know you say that a lot? You know, she took it almost as like a negative thing, as if I'm trying to, that she took, do you understand, as she doesn't know. I'm saying she doesn't know anything. And I said, no, what I'm trying to tell you is, tell me if that made sense. Tell me if that's the best way to coach you. And you have to pause and serve it back so that they can give it back again. So here's the cool thing. Wait, I'm having a breakthrough. Are you ready? So here we go. Man, we got to be writing all these down. That one I said about they got to come back next season and 20 years. The other
time,
one, yeah. So, hey, somebody listening to this, email it to me, and and I'll know you were listening. Well, here's another one. You ready? Coaching is not a monologue; it's a dialogue. So, coaching is not just a monologue. Like, I don't stand there and just talk. But that's how coaching used to be. When I was a kid growing up, coaching was a monologue. You didn't say anything. They said something, you did it, and most of the time they were making you do stuff you didn't want to do, and it was maybe not even the right thing to be doing, and they made you hate the sport. But see, coaching should be a dialogue, and and one big question, you ready? A big question that I have used, especially with the female athletes, like I said, because I experienced when I was coaching the middle school kids and the high school kids, it's different than training pros. I've trained a lot of pros, a lot of Olympians. Hey, those people, they're motivated. They don't care if you care as much. Like they got to get a job done, right? Like but I still think they care. But what I'm saying is they're so serious, you can actually get away with not being as good of a coach. But with those younger kids, and they're just there to do it. And I would say to them, when I would notice maybe I wasn't getting through, I would say, hey, how do you want me to coach you? What would you like me to say right here? Like, what gets you excited or fired up to do your best? And a lot of times the answers were not what I would have thought, because I'm that, let's go, let's fire it up. Come on, we got this, let's go. Whereas some kids, it might just be like, hey, I want to know everything's going to be okay when this is over, or hey, don't be so loud, or don't, just tell me to go do your best. And I'll tell you what, they helped me to be a better coach, but it was because I was having a dialogue, not just ranting in a monologue. So big one right there.
Yeah, and I can actually add something to that. This year I started working with a rugby team, and the first thing I asked them on our initial night, because obviously the board employed me to do the job, not the players, So the first thing I done at our first meeting was I sat everyone down and I just asked, I said, do you give me permission to coach you? Such a simple question. But we're quite presumptuous around those kind of things when we're in those scenarios with adults. And I just said, do you give me permission to coach you? And when I looked around at like 30 grown men looking at me, putting their hands up saying yes, it was a very enlightening moment.
Well, and here's something else too. I love it where one, you got them to agree that, hey, you're going to be their coach, right? But here's another thing that I'll saying that is, they got to give you permission, but you got to earn it every day. Right? Like, so do you see how, because they can't just, it's not just once. You've got to earn that title every day. So every time that I walk down onto the track, every time I'm coaching somebody, I don't forget the honorable position, and I know I have to continue to earn it. Like, because I'll say this, you could work with somebody, because remember I said trust is the bedrock of being a great coach. Trust could take a really, really long time to build, and it could take a second to destroy. And it could just be saying the wrong thing or saying something at the wrong time. And I've done that too. Like, I've just watched it where you say something and man, it just comes out, or you're angry in the moment. Sports there's so much emotion that happens with sports, but remember, you got to earn, after they've given you permission, you got to continue to earn that title every day. And if you do that, again, it's going to show that you're spending time and that you care. And that's where it's going to continue to go. But I love that idea where it's like, hey, is it okay if I coach you? And then they've now said, yep, you're going to be my coach, versus, hey, here's Adrian. He's the new coach. This is the guy that's in charge. No, but think about it. That's how most of us don't choose our coach. No one chooses our coach. We are given our coach. And a lot of times, until they've accepted us as their coach, maybe their results are never going to happen.
Yeah. And I'd actually love to know, as like you were at the Olympic Training Center, obviously train at a really high level. As you went up those levels, did the coaches get better? Did they?
Here's what I would say, and I've talked about it a bunch. And maybe this will be the answer in a side way. I wrote this book about coaching, and I already said my mom was my first and original coach. I would say she was the greatest coach that I could have ever had, because my mom gave me an attention to nutrition. She gave me attention to sleep. She put all the things in my mind about fitness when I was at an age I didn't even know I was getting them, and I would never be who I am without her. But when it came time to dedicate the book, and hey, I've been coached at a youth level, middle school level, high school level, college level, international level, Olympic level, and on a world level with all my fighting coaches. And here's the answer to that one. Of all the people that I could have dedicated the book to, I dedicated the book to my middle school, and then he became my high school track coach. And that was the guy that affected my life the most. That was the guy that changed my life the most. And I'm still in touch with him every week on social media. He's come to visit me, where none of those other coaches I ever have had did any of those things. So I would say that every level I went higher, the coaching got worse. And here's another one. And I coached at the professional level, but it's here. I don't want to, and I would never want to offend anybody. I think here's what I would say. It's not that the coaching got worse. It's not that they weren't great coaches. It's that the relationships got less and less connected. Yeah, that would be the way I would describe it. I never want to comment and say somebody's not a great coach. If you've aspired to the professional ranks, you got to be a great coach. It's just people become political. They worry about their job. They no longer, athletes are coming and going every year. The connection is less. And what I found was, or here's what I would even say too. I just found I didn't enjoy it as much every level I went higher. And I didn't enjoy the coaching relationship that I had when I was young, that it was the one that affected me most in my life. So yeah, just to make sure I'm saying it the right way. So I am in no way saying professional coaches are not great coaches. I'm saying though that the relationship is different, and the impact that they make overall in terms of the growth of the person and the identity of the person, it's probably a lot harder to do, for a 30-year-old professional athlete that has millions in the bank versus that 10-year-old kid in a very dark place that's looking for somebody to say that they can do something important in their life and believe in them. Yeah. And and I'm just trying to dance around this, but I would say it's very impactful. And listen to this. Here's a thing I wrote at the back of the book that might say, in my bio, it says, Martin Rooney is on a mission to make better coaches. And I say I did all these great things. You already heard it. Bobsled, track and field, work with Fortune 500 companies, places like Nike, the New York Giants, the New York Jets, the Navy SEALs. But watch, having trained NFL, UFC, Major League Baseball, NBA, and Olympic athletes, Martin learned the most from coaching his middle school and high school kids. So where I got my greatest lessons was not as I moved up higher. It was when I came back and where I'm focused now down lower. And so I just think if you want to make an incredible impact, if you want to have the biggest effect, man, like everybody, if you're a great coach, you should also be helping out the youth too, because that's where the world really needs you, versus some dad or mom that doesn't know anything about coaching that gets thrown into that position because nobody wants to help out. Yeah. So, and I get it, in our world of polarity and arguments, hey, I would never want somebody to argue it. If somebody's listening and you're a professional coach right now, hey, more power to you. I would just challenge you to make an even better relationship with those people, because caring still is important and communication is still critical. And but for those coaches that are coaching somebody young, that doesn't mean your job's not important because you're not working with a pro. You're the one that those kids you have are going to be the pros of the future, and you could be the one that makes that happen, just like my coach did. And maybe 30 years later, they dedicate a book to you about coaching because of the difference that you made in their life. So hopefully that was a diplomatic way to answer that question.
And I'm going to attempt to sum that up in Martin Rooney style, okay, with just one sentence. The world needs more better people than it needs better athletes.
Yeah, well, and how about and to make those better people, the world needs more than ever better coaches, right? And everybody's a coach. So, and that's what we're trying to work on. That's what today is about. Is anybody listening? If I said, "Who are you? What do you do?" You know, a lot of people, like, they don't say coach first. Even if they say it, maybe you'd say, I'm a hurling coach. Well, then, man, hurling is like your thing, maybe more than coaching, right? No. You're a coach, man. You're a coach that works with hurlers, or you're a coach that is a parent. You're a coach that is like we said, a hairdresser or a bus driver. Man, great coaches can come from anywhere, right?
Absolutely.
And you never know when something you say could have the biggest effect that somebody needs to hear. And once people really understand that, then they're going to watch what they say, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's always like, I always use the simple, I like to visualize things, and I see a coaching relationship as being like a rope, okay? So it's underpinned by your knowledge. So your scientific understanding or your technical model or framework of what you're coaching, right? So that's your main thread through that rope. But then we wrap that rope, okay? So we wrap it with empathy and connection and trust and caring. And the more we can wrap that rope, then the more we can stretch that rope. And then the more we can stretch the rope, the more we can stretch the person and the athlete, and the more they become. But if you try and stretch it without wrapping or insulating that with those capacities, if you want to call them that, then you're not going to be as successful or as helpful with that person or athlete.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's funny you talk about it. Like, in the book, there's a section on empathy. In the book, there's another big section, as you know, one of my biggest things. A lot of people ask me, they say, what do I believe is one of the most important characteristics of a good coach? And what I say is enthusiasm, right? Like, enthusiasm. And a lot of people say, oh, does that mean rah-rah, or like just getting excited, or veins in your neck like I always have? And no, what I'm talking about there is the enthusiasm about the other person, right? Like, so see, my daughter, no matter what, there's no way she can deny I am more enthusiastic about her than other people, right? And like right now, so I'm not enthusiastic about me. So for everybody listening, I'm not enthusiastic about me right now. I already did it. When I have a breakthrough, I'm like, I just had a breakthrough. I'm enthusiastic for the listener, for you. Somebody's going to get something new and a cool idea. And I'm so fired up because you could take that and make someone better. And see, that is so engaging, but it also, it wraps that trust up too. When you say, man, this guy's just so fired up about me, man, I like that guy. And I kind of say it's one of the greatest skills in the world, right? And there's whole sections in the story about it, because the guy in the book, when he starts, he doesn't have it. He's more excited about him. And because of that, no one else is listening, right? So another big, big lesson. And I don't care if you're from Ireland. I don't care if you're from the US. I don't care if you're from Bangladesh. That never fails, right? So if you can get pumped up about somebody else, man, they're gonna want to be around you, and they're gonna listen to what you have to say as their coach.
Absolutely. Martin, listen, your stories are infectious. Your energy is infectious. Okay. There is never a time where I don't hear you speak and you cannot help but be motivated and excited. Okay. So I'm also aware that your time is precious, as everyone's is, but could you please just direct the listeners to where they can find your work, to where they can purchase that book? Because that is a got to on every coach's shelf. Okay.
Yeah. Well, hey, so the new book, Coach to Coach, is on Amazon, so wherever you go through Amazon, and right now they've had a lot of sales on it, so you can't pass it up. I promise. I've had more people write me. Tens of thousands of people have gotten it in the last few months. And I've had more people write me that they either say, I haven't read a book in years. And this book, I read it, and then I read it again to pull out more of the stuff. So I promise, even if you're intimidated by reading, you got to get this book. You're going to love it. It's a story. And if you're intimidated by reading, they have an audio version, so you can listen to it if you want to. So you have no excuses. And there's Kindle too. But you can get that on Amazon or anywhere. But if you want to hear, I guess, either more from me or about me, you can either go to trainingforwarriors.com and see the blog there. And you sign up for the newsletter. I'm always sending that out. I have a podcast too called Into the Roar. There's 100 hours of great motivation waiting for you if you haven't seen that yet. And social media. So I'm the Martin Rooney on Instagram and just Martin Rooney on Facebook. And I'm always sharing stuff about my newest, latest adventures, which we didn't even talk about it. If you've seen, I actually have another athlete that I'm coaching right now. I use athlete loosely, and her name is Zuri. And if you've seen it in our house, we got a pig. So we have a pig now. So if anybody wants to see me doing stuff with the pig, check out my Instagram, and wait till you see how I'm using all my coaching lessons with this pig, and it's working. And yes, I said pig, not dog, pig. And it's, everybody's gotten a big kick out of that. She's put a lot of smiles on a lot of people's faces.
That's a gift. And I love what you said. I am the Martin Rooney on Instagram and just Martin Rooney on Facebook.
Well, what happened was there's so many, I guess, Martin Rooneys that I wasn't allowed to just be Martin Rooney on Instagram. So then I was like, well, then I'll be the Martin Rooney. And at least nobody took that one. Because I tried Martin Rooney 1, Martin Rooney 2, and I kept going until, holy cow, there's a lot of Martin Rooneys.
What about the real Martin Rooney?
Yeah. Well, hey, a famous story for the Great Britain Olympic team, the captain of the track team, his name is Martin Rooney. He spells it different than me. But one time I was speaking at Wembley Stadium, and he was there too. And he said, and he wrote me on Twitter, and he said, hey, Martin Rooney, it's Martin Rooney. We got to meet. And when I ran up to meet him, I said, man, every time I do a Google search, I see your face. And he said, stop right there. He said, every time I do a Google search, I see your face. And we've been in touch ever since. And he's always sending cool messages for my daughter because they do similar events. And so I can say, maybe he's the real Martin Rooney, and I'm the second one, because he's the man.
I absolutely love your work, and I am really grateful for how you've impacted my coaching through the years, first and foremost, and for you giving your time here today. I really do appreciate it.
No, hey, my pleasure. And for anybody listening, if you like this one, you want to hear more, tell Adrian about it. The more we hear about it, because we were just scratching the surface today, and I'm dying to get back to Ireland. I've made my kids a promise. Man, when this thing is over or whatever and we can travel again, I'm coming to Cork, and I know I'm going to either do some coaching greatness events, like a couple hour talks or something. So if anybody liked this, let me know, and let's set something up again, because that trip to Dublin and the Guinness factory and Temple Bar was one of the, I gotta see more of Ireland than just the bar scene, but man, I can't wait to get back.
More than just Temple Bar. Martin, thank you very much, my man.
My pleasure.